Good morning. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to part two of our series of Microsoft webinars focusing on capability within Microsoft 365 Business Premium. Today, we'll be following up from the identity and productivity services that we presented in the first session by taking a deeper look at Defender and Purview services along with real-world use cases. Today's session is brought to you in partnership with Microsoft and our Microsoft distributor TD Synnex. And by way of introduction, I'm Gavin Lee, Head of Sales and Managed Services here at Concord Technology Group. I'm also joined by Hannah Hammond, Concord's Group Marketing Manager, and Ed Dale, who's a Microsoft trainer with a ton of experience. And Ed will be delivering the majority of today's session. But before I hand over to Ed, apologies for anyone who's been on session one. We've got a mixed bag of people, coming into this second session. So 2025 marked 40 years in business for the Concord Technology Group. It's a massive milestone for our business. And 2025 also saw the largest incremental increase that we've seen within our Microsoft business unit. 30% increase in revenues linked directly to Microsoft Modern Workplace services. And this increase was down to a number of different factors, but primarily the collaboration between our customers and the Concord technical team. And these collaboration resulted in high value returns. This is clawing back time and energy in areas of compliance, data protection, and general risk reduction strategies relating directly to Microsoft technologies. As part of our go-to-market, I want to also as well reiterate that Concord is a service provider, and we are not here to purely transact Microsoft licenses. We're all about providing a competitive service that's backed with a commitment to provide a significant return directly to our customers. And that just doesn't apply to Microsoft. It applies to every vendor platform that we work with. For today, Hannah will be coordinating a Q&A for you guys, and we'll pick up questions along the way. But we also do plan, if time permits, to have further questions following Ed's presentation. We'll also be recording today's session, and for anyone that wants to see this or play this back after, that will be available on our YouTube channel. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Ed, and we can get things going.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Gavin, and good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for giving up some of your time this morning to join us on this second part of our journey into M365 Business Premium. As Gavin mentioned, this is continuing on from where we left off in part one, but we are still going to have just a bit of a recap from some of what we discussed in the first session. As Gavin also mentioned, the focus of this is going to be a deeper dive into some of the key security features of M365 Business Premium, such as Defender for Business. This really is the jewel in the crown of M365 Business Premium. It is Microsoft's premier EDR tool, endpoint detection and response tool, not antivirus. It's definitely way more than that. And we're going to dive into some of the main benefits and features of Defender for Business, because last time in part one we only covered off just the top line of what was included. We didn't actually talk around how any of it worked or what any of it looked like. So we're going to have a little look into this. We'll also then have a look at some of the premium add-ons that you can pop onto your M365 Business Premium subscription, such as the Defender and Purview suites. So that is the agenda for what we're going to be running through today. As we mentioned, if you do have any questions as we're going through, please don't hesitate to pop them up into the Q&A box there. We'll be checking that sporadically. We're not going to wait until the end and then try and route them all. We'll be keeping our eye on it. So if you have a burning question, please don't think you got to wait until the end. Please pop your question in and we will get to it as we can. So one of the things that we discussed in the first session were some of the challenges that organizations are facing today. Remote working, as we mentioned, continues to be the norm for many businesses. I know we've seen in the last couple of years, we've seen some organizations start to go back to more of an office-based model, but I would say the majority of organizations have now adopted this hybrid model as the norm. So that still does come with challenges when people are signing in from different locations, different networks, and it can cause some issues for IT when it comes to things such as compliance and security. We also spoke about the multitude of personal devices being utilized. We spoke last month about tools such as Endpoint Manager included in Business Premium, allowing us to securely manage endpoints, personal or company-owned endpoints, whether it's laptops, mobile phones, tablets. But then we also spoke about the increased phishing and ransomware risks. We called out some examples. 2025, as we mentioned, it wasn't a brilliant year in the UK for cybersecurity attacks, with a lot of high-profile things such as JLR. There was Co-op, there was Marks and Spencers, and the fallout from these attacks is still going on today. Now, again, I mentioned this before, but when there's normally an attack, a cyber attack, anywhere in the world, normally when you see it on the news, it's a big high profile company, like a big global conglomerate, something like that. And I do worry that this can put many of us into a false sense of security. That because when we see on the news it's always a massive company being attacked, that we can possibly feel, hey, well, we're not the target. They're not going after us. They're obviously going after the massive companies. My company, no, they're not. They're not interested. Well, as I mentioned before, news for you, they are interested. And if they get one chance, they will take everything they can. So it is imperative for all of us, regardless of the size of our organizations, to make sure we are doing the best that we can with cybersecurity, making sure that we are as secure as we can be. We mentioned last time that we would all love to be secure. We would all love to be more secure and more compliant. Of course we would. Only a madman would say otherwise. But that often comes with a cost. Being more secure, being more compliant normally means spending more money. And again, we spoke last week that doesn't have to be the case. The M365 Business Premium is designed to allow organizations like yours to be able to do more with less. That you can be more secure, you can be more compliant, but you don't necessarily have to be hemorrhaging cash to do so. And there are some fantastic offers and bundles out there at the moment, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, which again can help you meet those higher echelons of compliance and security without having to spend more money. And of course, we spoke about how you can trust Microsoft from a standpoint of security. A lot of people don't often think of Microsoft as a security company. If you were to play one of those word association games and someone says Microsoft, you'd probably think Word, PowerPoint, Excel, something like that. Well, security is up there too. We spoke last time how Microsoft is investing billions of dollars into security research and development, how they've got tools which can analyze threat signals across every Microsoft process, whether it's consumer or commercial, collecting 65 trillion threat signals every single day. And everything Microsoft learns from this huge level of global optics that Microsoft has directly feeds back into the products we use, making the products that we use more secure and more compliant. So Business Premium is that comprehensive productivity and security solution. It's a tool that's designed to help you run your business, build your brand and grow your customers. But again, and I would argue, especially in the current climate of cybersecurity, possibly more importantly, it's going to help you around these areas. M365 Business Premium really is a one-stop shop for your organization in terms of giving your employees the tools that they need to be able to work safely, to be able to work securely, collaboratively from any device, from any location, and do all of that, yet remaining secure and compliant. Things such as identities, access, governance, data, all of these things. M365 Business Premium has solutions to make sure that all of these challenges are being met without you necessarily having to spend more on expensive third-party security solutions and then the complexity of trying to get all of that stuff to work. Now, some people might say, well, that all sounds well and good, but am I putting all my eggs into one basket? Well, one of the things that Microsoft does, it has a layered approach when it comes to security. That whole I don't like putting all my eggs in one basket thing. That's a cautionary tale of a single point of failure. That if the basket on the handle were to break or the egg smash, everything goes wrong. Microsoft isn't one thing though. It's not one thing that can go down that drags everything else down with it. It is layered security in Business Premium across all of these different areas. And we discussed some of these last week, things such as Entra, Intune, Defender for Office 365, again, making sure your productivity applications are as secure as they can be. But there were two things that we didn't jump into in great detail last week. And that was, of course, Defender for Business and Purview. So these are some of the topics we are going to discuss. Now, I will just, as a caveat, Purview is a huge product. There is loads of things that goes into Microsoft Purview. We're going to cherry pick a couple of my favorites that you can utilize with Purview a little bit later on. But this is where we are going to focus our time. So let's jump into it. So Defender for Business. So as we mentioned last time, Defender for Business is a endpoint security system, or an EDR, endpoint detection and response. Now, the great thing about Defender for Business is it is very similar with Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Now, if you haven't heard of Defender for Endpoint is the EDR solution that comes included with M365 E5. Now, E5 is the all singing, all dancing M365 SKU. It's the most expensive M365 product on the market, and it's usually purchased by, the big enterprise corporations. And what they did is they took E5's Defender for Endpoint, they tweaked it a little bit. They made it easier and they optimized it for SMB. They lowered the price if you were to buy it as a standalone, but then they added it for free in Business Premium. So this means that if you have Defender for Business, you can enjoy similar levels of enterprise security and compliance that some of the world's largest organizations do. It's absolutely incredible that Microsoft give this away for free in M365 Business Premium. You can buy it as a standalone if any of you here are using M365 Business Standard, for example, you can buy Defender for Business as a standalone for a few quid. So either way, you're sorted. But the fact that this is included in Business Premium is incredible. Now, I mentioned this before, but some people do refer to Defender for Business as antivirus. It's not antivirus, because antivirus does have some serious weaknesses. Antivirus needs to be trained. It needs to be told what it's looking for in order to find it. These are normally through regular updates called viral definitions, effectively. The problem with that is that in this world, there are 7 million new threats created every single hour. Just let that sink in just for a moment. 7 million new threats per hour in this world. If you are utilizing antivirus solutions that require regular updates, how is a traditional antivirus solution meant to keep up with that level? It would just absolutely struggle. This is where Defender for Business is different, because it is cloud powered. Remember those 65 trillion threat signals that are being analyzed by Microsoft every single day? Well, everything it collects around the global threat landscape feeds directly back into products like this, making sure that products like Defender for Business are always up to date with the latest global threat trends. Again, doing what we can in an ever threatening world to make sure that your organization remains safe. One of the other things we also discussed as well is that I do believe it is a bit of a misconception out there that some people believe that in order to be more secure, you need to really diversify your security portfolio. You need to spread things out as much as possible. Now, I don't necessarily believe that is the case, because if you were to be protecting an endpoint, a device, for example, from all the threats that threaten endpoints, you would need to protect this laptop from everything that's on the left. So what, you got things like malware, phishing, ransomware, zero-day attacks. You would need to have software for all of this running on that endpoint. Now, that just It just wouldn't be feasible. It just wouldn't be feasible because, again, it's going to absolutely kill the performance of the device. Imagine being the IT manager that has to manage all of this stuff. Where are you going to find the time to do anything else in your day? And also the cost. All of these different products would have their own per user, per month cost attached to them. Now, it might only be a couple of quid. But again, scale that up over the amount of people that you have. Even something that only costs £2 per user per month, scale that up over 300. You've now got a product that's costing, hundreds, if not thousands of pounds every single month. So again, the cost is absolutely something to consider. And then there's the choice. How do you choose what solutions are best for you? There's only a few available. How do you know that the solutions you buy, that this will talk to this, and this will work with that, and this will work with this? This is where we talk around, the best of breed model being broken. Because we see this far too often, continually layering best of breed point solutions to address emerging security needs has caused organizational security to break down. We see this because tools are not being integrated because they're too expensive or they're too complicated, and that creates gaps in visibility. And if you've got gaps in visibility from a security standpoint, you might as well not have the tool in the first place. We also see that there are more alerts to triage than teams have the time to handle in their day, and constantly having to retrain IT administrators or IT managers on new tools and new solutions is a constant challenge. And this is what Defender for Business seeks to kind of find a balance. Because again, like I said, this whole situation does need to change. It is important for organizations like you, like me, to find that balance between powerful security capabilities, but yet a security posture that can be maintained over time with your current budget. That is the balance that we want. A powerful security solution that can be maintained with our current budgets. And this is where Defender for Business absolutely comes in. Because again, bringing in natively integrated tools into our organization, because again, there's no one single security solution that's going to solve all of our problems, but we recommend fundamentally that organizations simplify their approach to complex security challenges by using native security capabilities. They again are built into your platform, your devices, your productivity tools, because that's going to help manage the time that you spend managing all the multiple vendors that but you'll be buying security products from. It will make the user experience easier. It will lower integration costs because it's already included, it's already there in your license, and it has the potential to reduce security blind spots. So there is a lot of advantages to utilizing Defender for Endpoint. Now, one thing, just before I dive into this, in a recent IDC MarketScape survey, we actually saw that Microsoft endpoint security for SMB and enterprise were rated as some of the best that are available in today's market. Now that is pretty high praise when you consider some of the big names that Microsoft actually managed to beat out. So I only show this just in case anyone is concerned around confidence within Microsoft's capabilities. Microsoft has been an industry recognized leader in cybersecurity, not only from the IDC, but Forrester, Gartner have all put Microsoft security products as some of the best that are available. So you can use these tools with absolute confidence within your organizations. So Defender for Business. Last time, this is pretty much all we discussed when we got to Defender for Business. We just mentioned the functionality that it has. Now we're going to take a little bit of a dive into some of these and find out what it means. What is threat and vulnerability management? What is attack surface reduction? And explore how products like this can help make your organization more secure. Now, some of you may be familiar with the house analogy of security. Some of you may be. So the house analogy of security, well, we all know what a house is. Some of you may live in one. But obviously, with a house, you want to make sure the right people can come in and you want to make sure the wrong people stay out the house. So what do? Well, you probably put some outside the house security. You know what I mean? Things such as gates, padlocks, fences, these kinds of things. And we spoke about some of this stuff in the last session, some of that outside the house security. Things such as identity and access and MFA, that would absolutely be considered outside the house security. But what if somebody did get in? What if somebody did get into your house? How would we make it difficult for them either just to get into the house, or if they did get in, how do we detect their presence and how do we deal with getting them out the house? Well, that is where we are going to pick up with Defender for Business. So these are the areas that we're going to discuss: identify, protect, detect and respond, and recovery. So let's start off with our first area, which is threat and vulnerability management, and really kind of why we need this. And there's a few reasons why this is important for organizations. And some of the stuff that we've mentioned, we find an unmanageable number of findings, no insight into what's really risky, no prioritization of where to start. Well, let's see what Microsoft can do. So here is my house. You have to forgive the crude animations here, but it tells a story. Now, let's say that this is my house. Now, somebody very carelessly with their car reversed too close and they banged into my house, knocking some bricks from the property. So some bricks have fallen out. There is now a hole in my house, and a particularly slender criminal could potentially slip through and start stealing all of my lovely stuff. Now, what would you do if there was damage, physical damage to your building? You're going to call someone. You're probably going to call a builder. That builder will come round to the house and they'll inspect the damage. Now, when it's like when you take your car to the garage, or you do get a building inspector around, or whatever it might be, they never just stop at the thing you showed them, do they? You say, "Oh, I want to," but they're gonna point out everything that's wrong with your car or with the house, and that's exactly what this guy is going to do. Once he's had more than his fair share of tea and biscuits, he's going to make his way around the rest of the house, pointing out anything else which could be dodgy. That window's broken. That door's hanging off the hinges. That window's been left open. All this stuff, and he's going to point it out and give you a list and recommend what you need to do to make this house more secure. And that is exactly what threat and vulnerability management is doing within Defender for Business. It is that constant analysis of your organization, looking for areas where you could be vulnerable, for example. And everything is displayed on these very clear Power BI-esque dashboards. So we can see here our secure score, for example. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with secure score. Maybe some of you are. Secure score, it's a little bit like an Experian credit check for cybersecurity. If any of you here on this call are an administrator for your business in any shape or form, you don't have to be global admin, just an admin. If you go to, I think it's securescore.microsoft.com is the site, and you can go onto that and you can actually see your secure score. It will tell you your score and it judges it based on the security that you have available to you just from Microsoft. Granted, the security that you have versus the stuff that you've actually got switched on, the stuff that you're actually using, and that will demonstrate your score. Now, there will be lots of things you can do to bump that score up. One of those things will be to contact your account manager at Concord. If you have looked at your secure score and you're thinking, "Oh, that number's a bit low and scary," speak to Concord. They'll be able to have a look at that secure score and help you with those recommendations around getting more of this stuff switched on within your organization to, again, help bump your score up. Obviously, the higher your score, the more secure you are. So really, we want to be getting that up. But it's also going to show you around things such as compliancy. It will show in terms of like any potentially risky applications. It will give things around showing any phishing or malware that has been automatically blocked. So again, you have got this full visibility, which is great. And again, it is constantly checking this. They're literally every single day, constantly going around, making recommendations and keeping you up to date with the security status of your organization, because that's always the danger. You don't know what you don't know. So at least this can keep you up to date with what is going on within your organization. So that is threat and vulnerability management. The next thing is attack surface reduction, or ASR. Now, attack surface reduction is all about making your organization a much smaller target. That's exactly what it is. If I can make my business a smaller target, then it's going to be harder for an attacker to hit me. And that's exactly what attack surface reduction is designed to do. So let's say that I've got my house once again. So the build has been round, the damage has been repaired, but for the best will in the world, that builder is not a security expert. So this time I'm going to call a security professional out to my house. Now, this security professional might make some recommendations. For example, maybe there are some people who don't live in this house anymore. Maybe I had some flatmates or some lodgers that lived in my house. They don't live here anymore, but they never gave back their keys. Now, what should I do? There is somebody out there who potentially has a key to my house. Well, the obvious answer is to change the locks. To change the locks and make sure that only the people who live in this house actually have access. So that's what I'll do. I'll also lock those windows as well, because, if you're not, I mean, how many of us have got, you've probably all, I'm literally looking at a lockable window right now, and I don't think that window has ever been locked in its life. I can see the key, it's on the windowsill. There's a little kind of film of dust just around it, and I think some of you might be in the same boat as me. But you probably should lock windows. If you're not using them, lock those windows. And these are the kind of recommendations that this is going to make. Now, this also goes beyond just the obvious, identity, access, this sort of thing. You can use attack surface reduction to set some very specific rules as well. For example, I can use ASR to set a rule that blocks Office applications from injecting code into other processes. Now, effectively what this means is I can block Office applications from being vulnerable to certain types of ransomware, because that's how ransomware works. It's effectively, it locks up document after document after document, and it basically allows these documents to create what we call child processes and lock up one and the other. And that's basically how a ransomware attack works. One thing becomes infected and it locks up everything else as it goes along, like a domino effect. We can stop that from happening. We can actually block Office applications from doing certain things. Check this one out. We can, where is it? Oh, here's a good one. Block executable content from email and webmail. That's a good one, because I can tell you that nothing good ever happened from anyone opening a .exe from an email. That always ended badly for anyone that was doing it. So you can disable that. So this is what this allows you to do. This allows you to, in some senses, make yourself immune to certain types of attack. Obviously, things like ransomware, they are always constantly evolving, but you can make yourself immune. There used to be, if you've got just a moment, just for a quick story, some cyber attackers will actually use legitimate Microsoft processes and tools in their cyber attack. There used to be something called DDE, which was called Dynamic Data Exchange. Now, this was a legitimate Microsoft feature. It was part of Office. And basically, DDE allowed you to basically transfer data macros from one document to another. It was very useful for people using massive Excel documents. It was very useful indeed. But cyber attackers figured out how they could hijack this legitimate Microsoft feature, DDE, to do their dirty work, like ransomware attacks. And that's exactly what things like this would stop. So, antivirus can't protect against these kinds of things. If it's a legitimate feature that's been hijacked for bad purposes, antivirus is never going to detect that. You need tools like ASR in order to build out these rules and playbooks to basically designate how you want your environment to react. Now, ASR is a very clever set of tools and rules that you've got at your disposal here. But effectively, It's very powerful, and yeah, absolutely worth looking at. On to the next, which is the need for endpoint detection and response. And again, another really important area, because one of the concerns that we have is sometimes, 46% of systems had no malware on them. Sometimes it can be difficult to make sense of the threats that have been detected. Also, we spoke about that whole prioritization and where to start. So, what does this look like from our house analogy? Well, let's go back to our house. We've got the doors are locked, as are the windows. And you'll also notice we've got some lovely CCTV now in our house as well. Obviously, it's always good to have security cameras, not just on the outside, but obviously on the inside as well, because if somebody were to get into my house, I would want to watch that footage back. I would want to see how did they get in. I would also want to see where did they go once they actually got into my house. But even the most well-protected property isn't immune from someone, having a go. So let's say that a thief smashes the window and enters our house. Now, once they're into the house, their actions are detected almost immediately. The cameras turn and start recording, and then the alarm sounds, notifying the residents, in this case, me. Now, because this is my house and all this is doing is just detection, endpoint detection and response, it's notified me, the homeowner, to now go and deal with this situation. So it's now up to me to take one of my special brave pills, get the cricket bat, and start making my way downstairs to deal with this situation. In the IT sense, you would get a notification and you'd be heading off to the M365 security console, where you would be able to see the attacks that are actually either in progress or have been flagged, and actually start to resolve these attacks and issues. Oh, did we just get something come through the chat? Was that me, or was that... Oh, was that you, Gavin?
That's a shameless plug. Sorry.
Oh, no, please. No. Get those plugs in. Absolutely. So here's what I love about, endpoint detection response. Okay, so first of all, not only does it notify you the instant that the attacker's presence is detected, but it doesn't just give you the attacks in chronological order. It actually identifies the type of attack that we believe it is. So it will actually highlight that we think this is a golden ticket compromise, or this is a phishing email campaign that's been detected. But it will actually organize, and you can see how it's done this. It's actually organized it in levels of severity, because that's always what we don't want to do, is waste our time focusing on a cyber attack that in the grand scheme of things isn't as serious as something else. So this actually will help you understand and prioritize where your efforts need to be focused. So I can focus on the stuff that is absolutely imperative first, and then all of this stuff that's a bit more medium, yes, obviously it's urgent and needs to be sorted, but not before this. So again, it helps IT administrators understand the vulnerabilities, understand what's really risky, and also identifying what the attacks actually are. Now, from this security console, we can also see users with threat detections. Now, for those of you that joined us in part one, a couple weeks back, you'll remember we spoke about things such as Defender for Office 365, which was there to protect users against things such as like dodgy links. If someone sends you a dodgy link in an email, for example, and you click on it and, unwittingly launch a ransomware attack on your own business. Well, if somebody were to click on a dodgy link and Defender for Business catches it, and Defender for Endpoint catches it, and Defender for Office. There's so many Defenders, honestly, it's crazy. Defender for Office 365 catches that somebody's clicked on a dodgy link, and they get the big red notice come up on the screen saying this website has been deemed malicious, you can't go any further. This is where that is going to flag up, in things like this. A window similar to that, it's going to show this person has run into an issue. Defender for Office 365 has kicked in. You're going to see it flag up in a window like this. And also, devices that are a risk. Maybe these are devices that haven't been updated to the latest security or operating systems or whatever it might be. Devices that now sit outside your company policy of compliance. All of that stuff, again, visible from this window here. So again, it's all about giving IT administrators, that 360-degree view of security within their organizations. Now that's good. All of this is good. But you might think, oh, God, that sounds like a lot of work looking at all of this stuff and understanding this. And okay, fair enough. If you are a particularly busy person, you don't necessarily have all of your time to be focused on security, I can get why you might think that, which is why automation is something that is so important and something I'm very pleased to say is included as part of Defender for Business. So let's go back to my house example. So let's say that we're back in that situation again. The window's been smashed, the thief has entered the property, the cameras are recording, and the alarm sounds. Now in the old scenario, again, it was up to me to go and deal with this situation personally, but I'm going to use auto investigation and response. That would be the equivalent of the second the alarm goes off, the alarm system is actually connected to the local police station. So as soon as the alarm go off, the old Bill come charging in, arrest the guy and take him straight to prison. No trial or anything like that. No, you broke into Ed's house, you're straight to prison for this one. So that's effectively what this is doing. I didn't have to get involved. I didn't even have to ring the police. I didn't even have to get out of bed. Everything was effectively done for me. So let's have a look at what that actually looks like. Well, one of the really cool things around auto investigation and remediation is that it mimics the steps that a real human IT analyst would take. Now you might think, well, how would a human analyst know how to react? Well, again, consider those 65 trillion threat signals every single day that are being analyzed. Also consider that every single time someone somewhere in the world uses a Microsoft Defender product to fend off against some kind of attack, the way they use Defender, the way they solve the problem is effectively logged and recorded in this ever-growing repository of how to deal with very unique and complex threats. And also, don't forget, there's over 20,000 highly trained Microsoft security staff that also work at Microsoft that is also feeding products like this as well. So a lot of stuff goes into this to allow Defender for Business to react to, again, very complex and unique situations. Now, just because it's dealing with it all by itself doesn't mean you don't still have an element of control. You can still see exactly what Defender for Business is doing by looking at the auto investigation queue, and you can see all the stuff that it's remediated. You might notice there are some things on here that says partially remediated, for example. Now, what does that mean? Well, you can set different levels of automation with Defender for Business. Maybe you only want certain elements of your business to be fully automated. Maybe some other bits you want to be partially automated. Now, partially automated or partial remediation means that Defender for Business effectively tackles the virus or the malware or whatever it is. It will quarantine it, but it will then wait for you to come and perform the final coup de grace, for you to finally finish this thing off. That would then be up to you. And you can set, the levels of automation, whether you want to do it all, whether you want to do it all, or whether you want to split the jobs. And again, you can split this across, multiple work areas as well. It's not just like gray area. You either use it or you don't. You can use it in different levels across different parts of the business. So again, lots of really cool stuff. And you might remember when we were looking at our house analogy that I mentioned that we had CCTV cameras put up in the house and why that's useful. I mean, obviously in a real world scenario, CCTV is used by the police to understand, the people that broke in, how they broke in, what did they touch, where did they go when they were actually in the property. Well, the CCTV is actually kind of a thing because you can actually look at this. This is the investigation graph. Effectively, this is, for lack of a better phrase, this is the CCTV. We can actually play back the attack in in real time. We can see how the attack began. We can then see how the attack moved through the organization. We can see anything that was compromised, or anything that was touched by the attackers during the attack itself. We can see when the attack started, when the attack ended, or when the attack was remediated. But again, this just gives you that forensic level of being able to look back and understand more about the attack, how it began, and anything that could have become compromised during the attack itself. So again, absolutely incredible stuff that we can do there. Now, all of that stuff on its own should be good enough, but some people do demand more. Some people, some organizations, maybe yours, have to meet very strict levels of security and compliance. Maybe you work in an industry where, again, you are held to a higher standard of compliance and security regulations than other SMBs. Well, in the olden days, that would mean that even though you're an SMB, you would have to go and buy M365 E5. Even though M365 E5 is, over double the cost of M365 Business Premium, that was really the only choice you had to make sure your organization was meeting the compliance and the security requirements. But you don't have to do that anymore. If you did need or want to meet higher standards of security and compliance, the exact levels of security and compliance enjoyed by our E5 customers, you can now buy the E5 add-ons. So you can buy the E5 Defender Suite. Let me turn my pen on before I touch the screen. So you can buy the E5 Defender Suite, which comes with the E5 equivalent of all of this stuff. Now, some of this stuff you already get in M365 Business Premium, but you only get the P1 versions. With the E5, with this, you would get the P2 variants. Now, the P2 variants, they just have a few more bells and whistles, especially when it comes to things such as compliance. So, for example, Defender for Office 365, you get that in Business Premium, but with this you're getting the P2 version, which gives you a lot more features when it comes to things such as auditing, reporting, threat hunting and threat trackers. You can do things such as attack simulations with the P2 variant, which you can't do in Business Premium. So attack simulations, when you send everyone a fake phishing email and you see who clicks on it so you can find out who needs to come in for training or whatever it might be, you can do that with the P2 version, but you can't do it with just the P1 version that is included with Business Premium. Now, if you were to buy all of this stuff as a standalone, you'd be looking in excess of 24 quid, but you can get it for just around £10 per user per month. That's MSRP, but that's nearly a 60% discount on buying everything separately. An absolute bargain there. And then you've got the Purview suite as well. And as you can see, Purview includes a lot of things, and it's all around, data loss prevention, e-discovery, auditing tools, audit logs. In fact, this is actually one of my favorites, and probably one of the most reasons that customers go for Purview. I would say out of everything there, it's all important, but I would say e-discovery and the audit tools is one of the main reasons why we see customers buying Purview. Now, the really cool thing around Purview at the moment is it's currently 50% off. There is a promo which is going on right now, and this promo is only till the end of March. So if adding more security around things such as auditing, data protection, DLP, retention, insider risk, if these are things that are important to your business, don't sit about. You've only got until the end of March. Now, again, the ERP, is around £9.24, but we are doing it on promo, 50% discount. £4.62 per user per month. And obviously, if you sign up for that before the end of March, obviously you've then got that promo for the entirety of the year. So it's an incredible bargain that is going on with that promo. Obviously, speak to the team at Concord for more details. As I mentioned, Purview includes a lot. You're getting a lot for your £4 with Purview. And again, it's all around, compliancy. So you got things such as records management, insider risk management, retention, and governance. But like I said, some of the more popular reasons we see customers purchasing the Purview add-on does come to things like Purview e-discovery, for example. Now, some of you may be familiar with e-discovery solutions, but effectively, e-discovery solutions are there for running things such as either investigations or audits on organizations. And like I said, some of you may work in an organization where audits and that sort of stuff, potentially need to happen based on, industry regulation. And Purview e-discovery, makes it incredibly easy. I know there's a lot of stuff going on this slide, but effectively this slide is showing that e-discovery process in Purview. So basically it would start with a trigger. So this would be our trigger event over there. So that could be an investigation or a legal request. So you open a case in Purview, which becomes the place where all activity is tracked. And the first bit where we begin this journey using this is preserving the data, preservation. So you add the people or the locations involved, and you can place them on a legal hold. So that basically means that their data they can't delete anything. Data can't be deleted. Purview preserves everything in place across, Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams. The next step this does is things such as collection and pre-processing. So it runs targeted searches to pull back only the data is relevant based on what it is you're looking to do, what it is you're looking to investigate or audit. And also Purview reduces things such as duplications or any items, unnecessary. And then the review can begin. So it moves into the review phase. And this is where the collected items sit in that review set. And from here, you can filter, you can search, you can group conversations, you can tag content. It can do things such as threading. So if it was an email conversation between 10 people, it can actually thread the conversation together, so you can actually follow, a conversation as it went as part of your audit or investigation. It's incredible stuff. And then finally, once you've got everything, you can then export that data out along with metadata reports as well. So not just the stuff you're looking for, but the metadata that sits behind it. And then all of this can go to either, like auditing or legal teams, third-party investigators, and it keeps everything defensible as well. Tools like this are already used by, some of the world's largest organizations and legal organizations as well. Again, an incredibly powerful tool for data collection. The other thing is audit logs as well. Now I'm using Copilot as my example here because I'll be honest with you, Copilot has been a dominating conversation over the last 6 to 12 months. I'm sure you've all heard of Copilot. Maybe some of you are using Copilot. Maybe some of you are thinking about getting Copilot. Well, here's just an example of how Purview audit logs could be used within a Copilot situation, because you are able to have the visibility of how the people in your organization are using Copilot, who are using it, what files or emails are being accessed. Also, is anyone doing anything maybe a bit dodgy with Copilot? This is basically saying that it's detected someone's basically been asking Copilot stuff around money laundering. Well, Copilot has basically said, no, we can't help with this, but not before telling the audit log to remember who it was that did this. So again, you're able to go back and see exactly how people are using things such as Copilot. But again, it's not just Copilot. You can use the audit logs to look at people accessing SharePoints or accessing internal company data, what they access, when they access. Did they download a copy of that data? Was that data shared with someone else? So again, being able to have this full audit and paper trail of what people are doing with documentation and data within your organization. Whew, that's a lot of information. So let's have a quick look at the Q&A. Anything in the Q&A? No, there's nothing in there. I must be doing just a fantastic job of explaining everything so clearly. I know we've got no questions. We've still got a bit of time, so do feel free to pop some questions in. I'm actually at the end of my piece, but of course, do reach out to the team at Concord. If you don't already have M365 Business Premium, really, it's a no-brainer for the amount that you're getting versus the cost. It's an absolute incredible saving. Maybe you've already got M365 Business Premium, but maybe you're not using some of the features that we discussed, like, for example, Defender for Business. Then again, I implore you to get in touch with your team at Concord, because they will be able to, again, get you set up and get all of this stuff up and running. And again, from a health check perspective, it's always worth having a look at your secure score. Like I said, it's a bit like an Experian credit check for security. Have a look at it. But again, if what you're seeing doesn't all make sense, again, reach out to the team at Concord. They will be able to help you make sense of your secure score and give you the recommendations to make sure that you are getting the most from your M365 investments. So with that, I will throw back over to Gavin.
Oh, thank you, Ed. Another amazing session. Thank you very much for that. Wow, there's some takeaways in terms of the threat landscape out there, in terms of the processing power that we're seeing within Defender, but from a real world perspective as well. I mentioned in the chat that as part of our tenancy services, we're taking a lot of telemetry data and leveraging the investigations within Microsoft, and also as well doing a lot of the heavy lifting and shifting for our clients as part of BAU operations through our security teams. So our approach as an organization has always been around a blended approach to managing risk, leveraging AI, leveraging automation and capability where we can, but also as well taking into consideration that human element for key decisions within your operating practices. So it's certainly been an eye opener. The capability within Business Premium is absolutely massive. The potential for organizations to get a deeper understanding of how they can be more efficient in managing their data when it comes to regulatory and compliance, audit and discovery through add-ons, within Purview is an extremely interesting opportunity, and it's something that we're doing day in, day out, in terms of helping our customers make better decisions about the right landing zone for their data, but more importantly also as well trying to reverse engineer investment that's already been made, as migrations to SharePoint or the cloud, that potentially don't have the right kind of labeling or classifications that can represent audit risk moving forward. So it's an exciting time. There's lots of tools, within this ecosystem, and Concord has the team to support you in maximizing the return from these platforms. And following today, if anyone has any further questions regarding capability, looking for insight in the approach, whether they want to go down a Microsoft route, whether they want to take a blended approach from a tool set, we've got capability in having conversations in both camps. So please don't hesitate to contact me directly, or reach out to your customer relationship executive or manager here at Concord. So that's it from me. If there's any questions that anyone wants to pass on to Ed, we can quickly get to them. But if there isn't, Hannah will be distributing survey forms off the back of today's session. And we are also running a number of webinars that are coming up over the next couple of months that really sort of focus on policy, governance, and a variety of other technologies that can help you guys reduce risk, reduce complexity and around these kind of things. So do keep an eye out for them. So if there's not any questions, final thought from me is that I want to thank you all, for your time today. You're all busy people, so this is a massive investment, and we appreciate you taking the time to come along. Thank you. Seeing anything on the Q&A? All right. Okay, thank you very much. Have a great day.